Two of Sandra's goons shoved me into the back seat of a blacked-out SUV. One was bald, his skin inked from his neck down to his knuckles. The other looked like his face had been chiseled out of concrete. I didn't even have time to tie my damn shoes. They snatched me right off the front porch while I was still juggling grocery bags, tossed my phone into a ditch like it was trash, and tore down the road like maniacs until the pavement disappeared under dust. We came to a stop in the middle of a wind-blasted field. No houses in sight, no lights anywhere, just me, two muscle-bound statues, and her. Sandra stood there like she was striking a pose for a fashion magazine, heels dug into gravel, tight leather skirt, blood-red lipstick, one hand holding a thick envelope, the other curled into a smug little smirk. "Hey, babe," she cooed, like this was just a quirky little midweek get-together. "So glad you could make it. This'll be quick." I was too stunned to say a word. My eyes bounced from her face to the envelope. "What is this?" I finally asked, voice low. She stepped forward, heels crunching the gravel like bones. "It's a contract," she said flatly. "No lawyers. No court battles. Just you accepting the new rules." She lifted the envelope slightly. "I have lovers now, Harry. Several. Whenever, wherever. And you? You stay my husband. Silent. Loyal. Obedient. Like a well-trained pet." The bald guy let out a chuckle. The other one casually pulled a pin from inside his coat. Sandra raised the envelope like it was a prize. "Sign it, and we all go home in one piece." I didn't answer. My jaw clenched so hard I thought something might snap. Sandra tilted her head, her voice syrupy. "Come on, Harry. Don't make this dramatic. You knew. You're not that clueless." She laughed. "All those yoga retreats? Those late work nights? And you bought it? God, you're adorable." She wasn't just rubbing it in, she was savoring every second of it. And the sick part? She wasn't wrong. Deep down, I had known. I'd seen that text she forgot to close. Heard the music blasting in the shower while she texted under steam. Caught those grins she gave when she thought I wasn't watching, not to me, but to the thought of someone else. Or maybe more than one someone. Still, nothing prepared me for this circus. I always figured cheating meant secrets, cheap motels, maybe lipstick on a shirt collar. But Sandra? Sandra wanted signatures. She wanted her betrayal stamped and sealed like a legal transaction. I stood up slowly. The bald one twitched like he was ready to jump me. But Sandra raised her hand, stopping him. "No need, babe," she purred. "Harry's not the fighting type." I stared at her. Really stared. This woman, who once clung to me in the middle of the night, terrified of nightmares. Who sobbed in my arms at her father's funeral. Who used to say I was her home. Now she was standing here, selling off our marriage like some second-hand couch on Craigslist. And right then, something inside me just broke. Not loud. Not explosive. Just a quiet snap, like the final tooth on a worn-out gear giving way. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lunge. I just smiled. "You're right," I said, my voice calm. "Let's keep it neat." I reached for the pin. Sandra's eyes lit up like she'd just won. I took the envelope. She looked positively victorious. I signed. Then I laughed. I laughed so hard, all three of them flinched. Sandra's smile faltered. "What's so funny?" she snapped. I looked her dead in the eye. "Come," I said, the word cold as steel. My smile felt sharp enough to cut. "This is the part where I get messy." She blinked. "What?" I let the pin drop. "You wanted a show, Sandra?" I said. "Well, get ready. You're about to witness a goddamn masterpiece." And just like that, the real story began. See, folks like Sandra, they think betrayal's the grand finale. But they don't get it. Betrayal? That's just the opening scene. They think cornering a man and making him beg makes them powerful. But they forget what happens when a man hits the bottom. When he's stripped of pride, love, and reason. When the last decent piece of his heart's been burned to ash. That's the moment he turns dangerous. So no, I didn't scream. I started planning. I went home that night with a cracked ego and a mind on fire. I replayed everything, every fake excuse, every sideways glance, every shift in her voice. It was all clear now. Not just her betrayal. The pattern. The script. The whole goddamn act. Sleep? Didn't happen. By the time the sun peeked over the horizon, I was already dressed and ready. My revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be brilliant. The next morning, Sandra was out the door early. No goodbye. Just the sharp click of her heels on the stairs and the front door slamming like a final insult. I stood there, in the stillness she left behind. Same house. Same walls. But it all felt like a stage now, one I'd been performing on alone. That's when I saw it. Her second phone, sitting right there on the counter by the fruit bowl. Her work phone, she always said. Except she barely worked. She claimed it was for clients. Another lie I swallowed like a fool too loyal for his own good. But now? Now it buzzed softly, like it had something to confess. I didn't hesitate. I picked it up and punched in the one code she'd never change: her dead dog's birthday. Betrayal, it turns out, is depressingly predictable. The screen lit up. And just like that, I opened the gates to hell. Message after message. Guys saved under fake names: Janet, Jim, dental office, Steve HR. It wasn't a phone. It was a catalog of filth dressed up as scheduling. One guy even wrote, "Your husband's face when we dragged him, priceless. You sure you don't want to leave him?" And her reply? "He's like wallpaper. Easy to ignore, right? Just let him rot." That's how she described me in one of those damn messages. My hands trembled as I scrolled. There were photos and videos too, but I didn't need to open a single one. The captions alone were enough to make me sick. One said, "He cried last night. Told me he still believes in us." Then came the punchline, LOL. Rolling on the floor laughing. Another read, "Don't worry. I'll get him to sign anything. He's weak." But you know what? I didn't feel weak anymore. There was a time when Sandra could take my confidence and shrink it down to nothing with just a sigh or a sideways glance. She knew how to make me feel like I wasn't enough without even raising her voice. But now? Now I saw her clearly, no filter, no mask, just her real voice, her twisted pride in tearing me apart. And something inside me started to shift. This wasn't just infidelity. This was targeted destruction. She didn't want to fling, she wanted to erase me. So I did what any man with a shred of self-respect would do. I backed it all up. Every file, every screenshot. I sent it to the cloud, saved copies in 3 different places. This wasn't just about gathering proof. I was building my arsenal. By the time Sandra came home that night, I had everything: names, dates, hotel rooms, burner numbers, all memorized like scripture. She waltzed in humming some pop song, acting like she hadn't just nuked our marriage the day before. "You seem tense," she said, slipping off her heels like nothing happened. "Did you at least think about my offer?" I gave her a slow smile. "Yeah," I said. "Been thinking a lot, actually." Her eyes lit up. "Good. We can be modern. Evolved. Like grown-ups." I stayed quiet. Just watched her toss her purse onto the couch and saunter off toward the shower. She left it open. Big mistake. Inside was the burner phone she didn't know I'd already found the twin to. She still thought I was in the dark. Thought I was broken, passive, predictable. She had no clue that I'd already begun the process of dismantling her little empire. Because this time, there would be no tears, no begging, no dramatic yelling. She expected me to break down. Instead, I was going to erase her, piece by piece, just like she tried to do to me. The plan was forming clean, quiet, razor sharp. She had no idea that every fake laugh, every staged kiss on the cheek was being recorded in my mind like a countdown. Each one like a toll of a funeral bell. This wasn't a marriage anymore. This was a hunt. 3 days passed. I played my part flawlessly. The clueless husband. Tame. Dull. Soft-spoken. Sandra ate it up. She patted me on the back, called me honey, and disappeared for hours at a time. But I kept watching. Every eye roll. Every sudden glance at her phone. Every hushed message she thought I didn't catch. I studied her movements. She had 2 main lovers, Austin and Mike. Both were ripped gym rats with short tempers and shady income. Steroid rage and dirty money kept them pumped up and careless. And then came Friday. That's the night everything snapped. Sandra said we should have dinner together for old time's sake, she added, with a wink that made my stomach turn. She wore red. She always wore red when she wanted to play her power games. And I played along. Lit the candles. Opened a bottle of wine. Grilled steaks. Pretended I didn't see the message she'd sent Mike an hour earlier. "Wish me luck. If he signs tonight, we celebrate at your place." Round 2. I was the warm-up. The rehearsal before she disappeared into someone else's bed again. She raised her glass. "To growth," she said with a smile that made my skin itch. Then she kept checking her phone like she was waiting for applause. Out came the envelope again, the same twisted agreement that said I'd stay her loyal husband while she bed-hopped without consequence. "Let's just end the drama," she said sweetly. "It's not about love anymore, Harry. It's about freedom. Mine. You'll adapt." I stared at her across the flickering light, my chest pounding. "And what exactly do I get, Sandra?" She sipped her wine and shrugged. "You get to stay. You're the stable one. That has value, doesn't it? Something inside me tore loose. Not with fury. Not even with pain. It was a silent snap, like a rope breaking underwater. I stood up slowly, walked around the table, leaned down and kissed the top of her head. She giggled, thinking I'd finally accepted my leash. Then I whispered, "Let's take a selfie. For the memories." She blinked. What? Before she could react, I grabbed her phone from the table. "One selfie," I said. "Just humor me." Her face stiffened. "Harry, put it down." I smiled and flipped the camera, accidentally hitting the home button in the process. The screen came alive. No lock. One open chat thread. Mike. He'd sent a photo. Sandra. Wearing lingerie. Timestamp 2:45 p.m. today. Right below it, his message. That idiot husband still breathing? Sandra lunged at me across the table. But I was faster. I stepped back. My smile was gone. "You're finished." I said, "You're done." That's when her eyes went wide like she'd finally realized I wasn't bluffing. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered. I held up the phone. "Oh, really? So that's not you in this picture? Maybe you've got a twin I don't know about." She grabbed the wine bottle and poured herself another glass like she needed a drink to get through the inconvenience. "Look, just calm down," she said, like I was the problem. "I was gonna explain everything eventually. You're just being so dramatic." I snapped. "You texted the man who assaulted me and asked if I was still breathing." She shrugged. Actually shrugged, like I just caught her swiping the last cookie. "Harry," she said with a sigh, "I'm done pretending. You're weak. I need excitement. These men? They give me that. You bring home groceries." I laughed once, short and bitter like a cough full of glass. "You know what I see now?" I asked. "What?" "You never loved me. You just loved having control over me." She hesitated. For 1 second, I saw the mask crack. Then it snapped right back into place. "Fine," she said coldly. "Be a man for once. Leave. Or stay and rot. I don't care. I'm not changing." I nodded slowly. "You'll regret this." Sandra raised her glass and clinked it in the air. "To regret," she said with a smirk, then took a long sip. She didn't know that would be the last peaceful moment she'd ever have in that house. That's the thing about people like Sandra. They think they're invincible. They treat everyone around them like furniture, easy to move, easy to replace, easy to toss out. After that dinner, there was no sleeping. I sat in the garage, door cracked open, cold night air biting into me, and scrolled through her text again, filthy plans, smug messages, all of it. She wasn't hiding anymore. She enjoyed dragging me through the dirt. But then I stumbled onto something that stopped me cold. A message from Phoebe, her sister. Not one of the fake friends Sandra kept around for show. No, this was her real sister. The one who used to whisper to me at holidays that I was the good one. The message was buried between the filth. It read, "Sandra, you're pushing it. Mom and Dad don't know what you're doing with the house money, right? What if Harry finds out?" House money. I froze. Last year, we'd taken out a loan to redo the kitchen. Sandra wanted to handle the paperwork, said she wanted to be responsible, learn something. I let her. Another mistake. That night, I pulled out the paperwork from the closet safe, stuff I hadn't looked at since we got married. And there it was, clear as day. She had refinanced the loan, forged my signature, and moved most of the money into a separate account. The renovations? They cost half of what she claimed. The rest? Gone. No wonder she didn't want a divorce. She wasn't protecting her freedom. She was covering up fraud. By sunrise, I had it all: screenshots, printed statements, forged documents. The storm was building. And then I made the call. Phoebe answered, voice tense. "Harry, hey." "I need a straight answer," I said. "No games." "Did Sandra steal money from our loan?" Silence. A long pause. Then a sigh. "Yes," she said. "Why didn't you tell me?" "She said you knew. Told me it was your idea to help fund her salon project." I laughed bitterly. "She lies to everyone, Phoebe. Not just me." "I know," she said quietly. "She always has." I sank into the couch, the weight of it all pressing down hard. "How long?" "She's been funneling money for months," Phoebe admitted. "Some of it's gone to a guy in Florida. Mike, I think." Of course it was Mike. "Thanks," I said. "I've got it from here." "Be careful," she said. "Sandra's worse than you think." She always had been. I hung up and just sat there, staring at the living room. It was dressed in things she bought with stolen money, built on love she faked, lined with lies she wove like silk. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to warn her. I was going to end her, socially, legally, emotionally. Expose every inch of rot beneath the polish. I waited until Sunday, Sandra's sacred dinner night with her parents. That perfect suburban ritual she used to sell herself as the good daughter, the golden girl, the loving wife. I showed up uninvited. They were already seated when I walked in. Sandra froze like she'd seen a ghost. Her dad looked puzzled. Her mom gave me one of those tight, fake smiles. "Oh, didn't know you'd be joining us," Sandra said, voice way too sweet to be sincere. I dropped the folder on the table. "Thought I'd bring dessert," I said. She looked down and saw the papers, bank transfers, screenshots, signatures. Her mom stared, blank-faced. "Sandra, what is this?" Her father's skin went pale. Sandra shot up from her chair. "Harry, not here. Don't do this now." "Why not?" I said. "You love a good scene." She reached for the folder, but her dad was quicker. He snatched it before she could. "What the hell am I looking at, Sandra?" her dad asked, voice shaking. "Lies," she blurted out too fast. "He's twisting everything. He's just mad No, I cut in firm. It's the truth. The same truth she's been hiding while playing the perfect daughter." Her father's hand trembled as he pointed at the page. "You forged his name?" Sandra opened her mouth, then closed it. And for the first time, she didn't have a single lie ready to go. The drive back home was dead silent. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. The only sound was the low hum of the tires and her occasional sharp breaths, like she was still trying to piece together a story that made her look like the victim again. She sat with her arms crossed tight, staring out the window like a kid caught stealing candy. And the second I parked, she jumped out, slammed the car door, and stormed up the steps without waiting for me. I stayed in the car a little longer, letting her stew. She'd finally been cornered, and I could feel the fear radiating off her. But I also knew she wasn't done. Women like Sandra? They don't fall. They plot. Sure enough, when I walked inside, I caught her in the kitchen on the phone, whispering in that venom-coated voice she used when she was cornered. "He just showed up with everything." "No, I don't know how he got it. But listen, you need to lay low. He might come after you next." She turned and saw me standing there, just watching. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. I just raised an eyebrow like, "Go ahead. Spin another lie." She hung up in a rush. "What?" she snapped. "That Mike?" I asked. "Or Austin? Kinda hard to keep track these days, huh?" She scowled. "I'm warning you, Harry. You don't know who you're messing with." I stepped forward slowly. "No, Sandra. You don't know who you're messing with. Because now I finally see you for what you are." She let out a cold laugh. "You actually think I'm scared of you? You're not a threat. You're background noise." I walked past her, straight into the living room. Sat down and placed a second folder on the coffee table. This one was thicker. Photos. Screenshots. Hotel addresses. A full breakdown of her affair with Mike, the gym rat turned wannabe thug who bragged in text about snapping me in half if I ever stepped out of line. I looked at her and calmly said, "You should probably take a look at this." She didn't move. "Sandra," I continued, "I know Mike has a record. I also know he's still on parole. And now I've got enough to connect him to fraud, forged documents, and violent threats." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You wouldn't." "I would," I said. "And I already have. The police will visit him first. They like starting with the muscle." Her face went pale. She tried to speak, but the words got stuck. Her hand shook not from guilt, but fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing the empire she built on lies. I leaned forward. "You wanted to trap me in this marriage while you ran wild with every meathead who could bench press his own ego. You used me like a bank account with legs. But now," I gave her a cold smile, "now, I'm the one holding the cards." Right on cue, a knock hit the door. Sandra jumped. I opened it calmly and found a uniformed officer standing tall, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Harry Nelson? That's me. We'd like to speak with you regarding a report involving forged loan documents and an individual currently on parole. May we come in?" I stepped aside. "Of course, officer. Right this way." Sandra backed into the corner of the room, arms wrapped around herself like the walls were closing in. And maybe they were, because one of her boyfriends was already in hiding. And the next? He wouldn't be so lucky. Sandra always thought she was the smartest person in any room. Manipulative. Charming when she needed to be. Fearless when she had the upper hand. Like a fox that still thinks it can outsmart the hounds, even with its leg in a trap. But the thing about smart people? They get lazy. They miss the small things, the little cracks that turn into landslides. The officers didn't arrest her that night. They were just there to take a statement. But watching her squirm under their questions about the fake signature, the missing money, the ex-con she was sleeping with, that was better than any revenge I had imagined. I kept calm, respectful, the model betrayed husband. Sandra? She tried to twist the story, of course. Said it was all a misunderstanding. Claimed I was the emotional abuser. Said I manipulated her for years. But what she didn't know was that I had already filed for divorce yesterday, actually. And I did it with a prenup she had completely forgotten existed. Early on in our marriage, Sandra thought it would be romantic to sign one. Said it was proof we were marrying for love, not for money. I agreed. Back then, I still believed her. But thanks to an old lawyer buddy of mine, I'd slipped in a clause, real subtle. Any confirmed infidelity voids her claims to assets. Not only that, it handed everything back to me. The house, the savings, even the business she tried to bleed dry. After the cops left, I sat her down. Sandra, I said, my voice soft, almost gentle. Remember that prenup you signed? Back when you were still pretending to love me. She crossed her arms, defensive. What about it? I slid the original document across the table. You really should have read it a little closer. She snatched it up and flipped through the pages. Her eyes scanned quickly at first, then slower still. And then she saw it. That clause. Clear. Ironclad. Unmistakable. No, she whispered. You can't use this. You tricked me. I shook my head. No, Sandra. You tricked yourself. The moment you dragged me into that field and tried to force me to sign that garbage contract, you wrote the ending to your own story. Her hands trembled. She stood, breath ragged. You can't take everything, she snapped. That house is mine. I picked the furniture. I chose the countertops. You paid for it with stolen money, I cut in. And by the way, your name was never on the deed. Silence. Then she laughed. Not the flirty, playful laugh she used to weaponize back when she still had charm. This one was bitter. Ugly. Rattled. You think you've won? She spat. You think it's over because you pulled some sneaky little claws out of your ass? I didn't blink. It's over because you underestimated me. Her finger shot out, trembling with fury. You're pathetic, she growled. You'll always be pathetic, no matter how much paper you wave in my face. Maybe, I said quietly, but now I sleep alone. And I sleep just fine. She stormed upstairs, slamming the bedroom door so hard it knocked a picture clean off the wall. I didn't move. Let her yell. Let her throw her tantrum. It didn't matter anymore. Because this wasn't just a marriage falling apart. This was a scam collapsing under its own weight. She'd built a life on lies, betrayal, and manipulation, but never stopped to check the foundation. Now, everything she thought she owned was slipping like sand through her perfectly manicured fingers. For the next few days, Sandra went quiet. No insults. No late-night guilt trips. No smug smiles. She barely left the bedroom, just shuffled out for coffee, then vanished into her own bitter silence. But I knew better than to believe she was done. Sandra didn't give up. Sandra regrouped. And right when I let myself think the worst might be over, the storm came crashing right through the front door. Literally. I was in the garage, digging through old boxes, when I heard it. The slam. That kind of slam that says, I'm not here to talk. I stepped inside, and there he was. Mike. All muscle, sweat, and rage. His shirt stuck to him, tattoos flexing with every twitch. Jaw locked tight, eyes burning. And behind him? Sandra. Watching like some twisted queen behind her snarling knight. You think you're clever, huh? Mike growled, taking a step closer. You called the cops on me. Got me looking over my shoulder every damn second. I didn't flinch. I'd been scared before, but not anymore. You assaulted me, I said calmly. And your parole officer knows. You should be in a jail cell, not standing in my kitchen. He smirked, but there was panic hiding behind his eyes. Sandra had lied to him too. You're not pressing charges, he said quickly. Sandra told me you wouldn't. I looked past him, straight at her. Sandra lies, I said. She always lies. That one landed. Sandra's smug expression cracked for a second. She opened her mouth to spin something, but Mike was already stepping forward again. He jabbed a thick finger into my chest, hard. You think paperwork makes you a man? He hissed. You think your little folders scare me? I looked down at his finger, then locked eyes with him. No, I said, steady as a rock. But you should know, I installed cameras last week. One in this room, one out front. And guess what? They're rolling right now. Mike froze. I tapped my phone in my pocket. One button, and your parole officer gets a fresh video of you violating the restraining order I filed yesterday. Signed, stamped, and on record. Sandra's eyes widened. You're bluffing. Am I? I asked. Feel free to test me. The tension in the room thickened like smoke. Mike's fist clenched, his knuckles going white. Sandra's gaze darted between us, calculating, trying to figure out which one of us still had use for her. Then, slowly, Mike stepped back. You're dead inside, man, he snarled. You think this makes you strong? Hiding behind the law? No, I said quietly. What makes me strong is that I didn't sink to your level. You're a threat to society. I'm just the reminder that someone, someday, will stop you. He turned to Sandra, eyes blazing. This wasn't worth it. She reached out, trying to touch his arm. Mike, don't. He shoved her hand away and stormed out. The door slammed behind him hard. But this time, it felt final. Sandra didn't look at me. Just stood there, arms limp at her sides. No smugness. No fire. Just hollow. I poured myself a glass of water and took a long sip. You picked a man willing to break the law for you, I said, but not one willing to stay when the game stopped being fun. Her voice cracked. He said he loved me. No, I told her. He loved breaking things. And you handed him the bat. She opened her mouth, maybe to scream, maybe to beg. I didn't care. I walked past her without another word. And for the first time since the nightmare began, I felt peace. Not quiet. Not numb. Righteous peace. The kind that settles in when the dust clears, and you realize you're still standing. The next morning, Sandra sat at the kitchen table, blank-eyed and hunched over a black cup of coffee she hadn't touched. No makeup. No jewelry. Just a hoodie 2 sizes too big and a woman who hadn't slept in days. It was the first time I'd seen her without her mask. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She didn't look at me when I walked in. Just asked, flat and low. So, what now? I poured my own coffee and leaned against the counter. Now, I said. The divorce finalizes next week. The house is mine. The business accounts are frozen. And by Friday, you'll be served a formal exit notice. Each sentence hit like a hammer. She flinched. But she didn't fight. Not anymore. I've already redirected your mail, I added. You'll need to have your things packed by then. Still, she stayed silent. But it wasn't the tense silence we'd shared before. This was emptier. Final. Because there wasn't anything left to say. The lies. The manipulation. The whispers she thought I never heard. All of it had crumbled down to this. 2 strangers sipping coffee in a house built on betrayal. I didn't want it to be like this, she finally muttered. I let out a short, bitter laugh. You wanted a husband who'd stay loyal while you played queen. You had your throne. You just didn't think it would all turn to ash. She looked up at me then. Eyes red, not from tears, but from the kind of exhaustion that comes when a whole life built on lies finally caves in. Do you think you're better than me now? She asked. I met her gaze. No. I know I am. Because when I was hurt, I didn't hurt anyone back. When I was betrayed, I didn't betray. And when you had every chance to fix this, you chose your ego every damn time. Her lips parted, maybe to spit something hateful. But nothing came. The venom was gone. Whatever fire she thought she had, it had burned itself out. I turned and headed for the hallway. Halfway there, I paused and looked back. You want advice? She didn't speak. But she didn't look away, either. Next time someone loves you enough to sacrifice for you, don't use that love to build a lie. Because even the quietest man eventually learns how to burn bridges with a smile. That was the last thing I ever said to her. Sandra left 2 days later. No goodbye. No note. Just an empty closet and a half-used bottle of perfume left behind like a ghost that hadn't realized it was dead. I walked through the house room by room. Opened every window. Let the air shift. Let the past escape like smoke from a fire that had finally died out. And for the first time in years, I wasn't holding my breath. People ask me what I learned from all of this. It's simple. Never mistake silence for weakness. Never confuse love with permission. And most of all, if someone shows you who they really are, don't wait for them to change. Believe them. And leave. Because men like me, we don't stay broken. We rebuild. Stronger. Smarter. And far more dangerous than the ones who smiled while they tried to destroy us.